This is going to be part two of my every NFL team's best trade asset video. And we're just going to get straight into it, starting with the AFC East. The New England Patriots, I have Vederian Lowe. Now, there's really not a lot of options from the Patriots roster, and I understand that a backup tackle who has played somewhere around 10% of the offensive snaps this year, he's just not a big name. But somebody in this league, a team, maybe the Bengals, Chargers, or Jaguars, would be interested in adding a guy who has started 21 games over the span of 2023 and 2024. Someone that could add depth, and at the deadline, that's always a win. For the Buffalo Bills, I have Ray Davis. Now, Davis is another name that isn't huge in the NFL, but last year he was a guy who had over 600 yards from scrimmage and 6 touchdowns, while essentially splitting the backup running back spot with Ty Johnson. Someone like the Commanders, the Bears, or Texans all could use a guy that is reliable in the running game and passing game and getting a new backup running back. The Miami Dolphins, probably one of the more obvious ones, is Jalen Waddle. Now, there's been a lot of talk about Waddle's availability in the trade market, and by the time that this video is out, Waddle might already be out of Miami. The Steelers, Texans, Panthers, and 49ers all are teams that are close to being able to make a run in the playoffs or even within their own division. And bringing in Waddle to those offenses would take them up a notch that could make them elite on that side of the ball. The New York Jets, another big name, and another name that's somewhat obvious is Breece Hall. He's another guy that has been, there's been rumors swirling around, but with Hall, these rumors have been since the beginning of the season. The Jets front office knew they were playing with fire without getting a deal done with Hall before the season started. And now that he's off to this incredible start on this terrible team, there's a very good chance that he could almost demand $15 to $20 million a year on his next contract. The Cowboys, yes, even with Javonte Williams, Vikings, and again the Texans, all should be teams that are at least calling the Jets and testing just how much it's going to take to try to get Hall on their team. Going to the AFC South with the Indianapolis Colts, I have Adonai Mitchell. Now, Mitchell has not had the year that he or the Colts would have wanted, but to be fair, I think more of that has to do with the fact that Jonathan Taylor has been the best running back in the entire league. And right now he's behind Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, Ashton Doolin, Josh Downs, and even Jonathan Taylor in the pecking order in the passing game, and Tyler Warren. And so that's just going to lead to less opportunities for him. I think the Browns, the Titans, Falcons, and the Giants all could use a guy from the trade deadline that's a low-risk, high-potential type move, and Mitchell would give them that at the receiver position. For the Jacksonville Jaguars, another receiver, I have Tim Patrick. Now, he's more of the veteran receiver that you would try to add to be a mentor or just be a guy that you can lean on to end the season. He's been a guy who has had positive impacts on many of the rosters that he's been a part of. I think the Chiefs, Chargers, and the Panthers all are teams that have young receiver cores that would definitely improve with an addition in the experience department. From the Houston Texans, I have Christian Harris. Now, a couple of years ago, we saw Christian Harris as a 22-year-old linebacker returning a touchdown off of an interception in the wild card round against the Cleveland Browns. Nowadays, he really just doesn't get to play. Since the Texans have added Azeez Al-Shire and EJ Speed, and with the massive improvement from Henry To'oTo'o, it has made Harris a bit expendable, leading him to only playing a handful of snaps on defense the last month or so. I think the Niners and the Seahawks both would be teams that I think could get the most out of Harris. I think the Niners would be a real obvious one. I think DeMeco Ryans, it would probably be a real easier conversation between Ryans and Robert Saleh and the Texans and Niners front office staffs to be able to get a deal done. And again, I think Harris would end up going to a team with the Niners that could use him and would, put him in positions to succeed. From the Tennessee Titans, I have Chig Okonkwo. Chig Okonkwo has had a long time now. He has for a long time now, is how I should say that. He, for a long time now, has been a solid option in a bad passing offense. And at only 26 years old, there's a very good chance that putting him on the right offense with a good quarterback could see him take off. I like the possibility of putting him on the Panthers or the Ravens and making him feel like he doesn't have to be the number one or even number two option on either of those offenses. Just be a guy who is consistent in the running game in terms of blocking and is consistent in the passing game as well, in getting big plays, those chunk yards that you always look for from your tight end, or just to be a security blanket as well. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, I guess it's Jonnu Smith. I mean, if I were to bet on a team that is not going to trade any of their guys and is just going to be trying to make the Super Bowl run, it would be the Steelers. Jonnu Smith is really the only guy I could see getting moved, and I would put those chances at probably like 10%. But I still think the Panthers, Commanders, or even the San Francisco 49ers could use someone like a Jonnu Smith on their offense. From the Cincinnati Bengals, probably another obvious one, I have Trey Hendrickson. I think I kind of said this before the year started when Trey Hendrickson kind of got a raise for this year. If you were to look at the Bengals, or if you were to be the Bengals front office, looking at how ineffective this defense has been, why would you not try to trade Hendrickson and get something for a guy that I think at this point is as good as gone once the season ends? But I still think someone is going to think that he could be the elite pass rusher for their defense. I think the Cowboys, Commanders, the Lions, the Seahawks, they could all use the type of pass rusher that Hendrickson is. And I think now is when the Bengals hold, honestly, as little leverage as ever, which would make it even less difficult for a team to try to trade for him now. The Baltimore Ravens, I have Cooper Rush. I think the Ravens are another team that I just don't think is going to be dealing anyone away from their roster, especially after they did just trade Jair Alexander. And it's also obvious that Tyler Huntley, if Lamar goes down, Huntley's going in the game. It's not going to be Cooper Rush anymore. He's obviously a way worse fit in this offense than Tyler Huntley is. So Cooper Rush at this point is possibly even just a cut candidate. But I think the Jets, the Raiders, and the Cardinals, they're all teams that could possibly add to their quarterback room at the deadline. Now, for the Cleveland Browns, there was a report recently that the Browns possibly could be more in the market of trying to buy at the trade deadline. If you're saying that because you think that they're going to be trying to buy draft picks in exchange for their players, then I would believe it. I have no inkling of any reason to believe that the Cleveland Browns are just going to stand pat at the deadline. And if not anything, try to add pieces. They should be doing a complete fire sale because there's probably 10 to 20 guys on their roster that are either free agents at the end of this year or just are guys that are expendable with a young offense that it's really not succeeding, but they're getting good production out of their rookie running backs, rookie tight ends, a decent year from Dylan Gabriel. But the obvious player that should get traded is Myles Garrett. I mean, if you're a Cleveland Browns front office member and you're thinking about this logically, yes, Myles Garrett is the reason that this defense year in and year out is one of the best in the NFL. But your offense is nowhere near good enough to make it actually worthwhile. And so why would you just stand pat at the deadline again when Myles Garrett is probably one of the few players in NFL history that could garner one or multiple first-round picks in a trade? I mean, if it's me, I'm calling Philly, Tampa Bay, the LA Rams. Those are three teams that all could see Myles Garrett as the guy to push them over the hump and win a Super Bowl. And I think you could easily get at least one first-round pick, again, if not multiple, for Myles Garrett. Moving to the AFC West, the Denver Broncos, I have Alex Palczewski. I'm not exactly sure how to say his name. What I do know is he is a guy who has played a solid amount of snaps for the Broncos this year as a backup offensive lineman. He could step in as a starter or be another backup with one of either Houston, Cincinnati, or Las Vegas. The Kansas City Chiefs, I have Kareem Hunt. Again, another team that I just don't think is going to be making a move at the deadline in terms of shipping someone out. But I do think Hunt is not going to have a very big role going forward for the Kansas City Chiefs. A guy, when you think about it, is probably 6th or 7th in the pecking order of guys that you want to get touches. Dallas, Chicago, and San Francisco, all are teams that could use another running back. The LA Chargers, I have Jasir Taylor, a guy who wasn't an everyday starter for LA last year, but he still was someone who played a lot of defensive snaps. This year, he hadn't played on defense until week 8. He could be a guy that goes to Dallas, Cincinnati, or Las Vegas and be a valuable piece going forward as a young player in their secondary. From the Las Vegas Raiders, the final guy on this list, and a guy who is probably another one of the obvious selections, is Max Crosby. No, I've never been the biggest fan of Max Crosby, but even with that being said, I see the value in trading for a guy who has been one of the better pass rushers in the league for a long time now. Again, like Myles Garrett, you would call someone like Philly, Dallas, Tampa Bay, or the LA Rams. Those all are teams that could be pushing to try to get an elite pass rusher at the deadline that could try to help their playoff or Super Bowl push. That is going to be part 2 of my NFL trade deadline series, going through and looking at every single team's best trade asset at the deadline. If you like this video, make sure you check out my other one going through the NFC teams. If you're a fan of any of these AFC teams and I said someone that you agree with or disagree with, let me know why in the comments down below. And make sure you check out my other video, and I'll see you in the next one.